Is it? Okay, so we are going to be covering surface area of right prisms. So far we have talked about volume, which is if you take the three-dimensional shape and you want to fill it with something, water or sand, and how much area that you can fit inside the shape. Well, now we're moving on to surface area. And so a real-world example of this would be like wrapping a present or painting the outside of a box. So you want to figure out how much area all your surfaces have. Okay, so the first shape that we have, we would identify this and we would say this is a rectangular prism. And the things that we would know about a rectangular prism is it has a top and a bottom rectangle that are congruent to each other. It has a front rectangle and a back rectangle that are congruent to each other, and two sides that are congruent. So one way that you might tackle this problem is say that you have a top and a bottom, and those should have the same area. You have a front and a back, and those should have the same area. And then you have two sides that should have the same area. And then you're going to identify those sides on your triangle. So first, our top and our bottom is going to be up here and down here. And since we know rectangles, we know that if this is 12 inches, then the corresponding side length is going to be 12 inches. If this bottom line right here is 4 inches, the corresponding line is going to be 4 inches. If this is 9, this will be 9. So you can go ahead and label all the sides based on rectangle properties. So the top and the bottom would have a length of 12 and a width of 4. And we know rectangles, length times width finds area. So the top and the bottom would both be 48 inches squared in area. The front and the back. So and you can even shade this in to let yourself know, hey, I took care of that side of the rectangle, or that side of my shape. So the front is going to be 12 by 9. So you would do length times width, 12 times 9, and you would get 108 inches squared for both of those sides. Shade it in. Now the last side, and if you want to trace along the side, that might help you also to realize it is 4 by 9 and has an area of 36 inches squared. So what I've done is I realized that a rectangular prism has 6 sides. I found the area of each side, and then what I would do to get the total surface area would be to add all these numbers up. We're going to do one other method. So the other method is actually using the formula. So what you need to do if you use the formula is identify your length, your width, and your height. So right here, here's the length of the rectangular prism. Here is the width of the rectangular prism, and then 8 inches would be the height. And it's basically what we did before, just written in a different way. So you're going to double the length times the width, which would be your top and the bottom, and the reason you double it is because you have a bottom and a top. You want to add that to 2 times the length times the height. So the length times the height is going to give you both your front and the back, plus 2 times the width times the height, which would be the 2 sides. So in this case, we would take 2 times the length times the width, so that'd be 2 times 15, which is 30. You want to do 2 times the length times the height, so 3 times 8, you're going to do 2 times 24, which is 48. And then finally 2 times the width times the height, so that's going to be 2 times 40. So this accounts for both your front and the back, because it's 15 and 15. This accounts for both the top and the bottom, because it's 48, which was 24 and 24. And this accounts for both 40 sides. 40 and 40 makes 80. So once again, you would add all this up, and your units are squared since it's area. So it would be inches squared. The other shape that we're going to get to since we're doing right prisms is those triangular prisms. And what we learned about a triangular prism is that it has 2 congruent bases. The bases are obviously the triangles, since those shapes are named on their bases. So we have 2 congruent triangles that should have the same area. And then you've got to realize that this shape has 5 sides. So it has a bottom rectangle. It has, maybe you can call this the front rectangle, the slanted one. And then it has the rectangle hidden in the back. So we'll call that the back rectangle. So for this one, what you have to do is just, there's no shortcut that we're going to use. We're just going to find the area of all the sides and then add them up. And I think it's easy to trace on this, so you make sure that you hit all your bases. So for both triangles, you want to do base times height and divide by 2. So you're going to do 8 times 6, which is 48, So this triangle has 24, and this triangle has 24 centimeters squared of area. So that knocks out both triangles. I also have a bottom rectangle. If I trace along the bottom, it's 6 by 9. So that's going to have an area of 54 centimeters squared. The front rectangle is going to be 9 by 10 if I trace it, which is 90 centimeters squared. And there's usually one rectangle that's kind of hard to find. So if you trace this one, you know that this is 8, and then you know here is the length of it, and you have to realize that if that 9, based on rectangle properties, that's going to be 9 centimeters. So that one's 8 by 9, which is 72. I've got the area of all 5 of my faces, and I would add that up to find the total sum and the total surface area. So that's just a quick synopsis of how you find surface area of right prisms.